Hello friends, welcome back to a new month of Watercolor Club. Happy August. Hope you guys are staying cool. It's a little hot, but you know, to be expected this summer. Okay, so due to our popular request and demand, we're going to cover some like summer produce. So I figured for this first one, we're just going to kind of start with fruits. So summer fruits, and then we'll kind of do vegetables maybe for our second tutorial this month. So I'm just gonna grab my round brushes to start with. I've got a size 6 here, and I'll do a 12. This is a 12 too. I was looking for a 10, but a 12 will be fine as well. Oh, here's a 10. I'm gonna do a 10 instead. I just feel like it's more manageable. Our fruits aren't gonna be that giant. So I've got my Princeton Heritage Series round brushes, but whatever round brushes you prefer is great. I'm gonna turn this music down a little bit. Starting to feel like I'm yelling at you. It's supposed to be relaxing. Okay, so I have my watercolor paper here. I'm just using my Canson, so I just have Canson watercolor paper. I'm not planning on doing like a full piece, so I'm not going to tape down the edges. Practice however you would like to. I have my warm and my cool cups over here, and then I've just got my like standard palette. And I did get some requests for redoing this palette with you guys, which I think is a great idea. I'm gonna kind of like use this up a little bit more, and then we can reset it together. So probably like next month or maybe in October. I am restructuring some of our watercolor club stuff. Obviously for September and October, I'm gonna be MIA with the baby, or really big and pregnant, at least in September. So we're going to not do our in-person meetings for next month, so we'll restructure that, but I am going to do a couple different like levels depending on how much you want to practice at home. So we'll have like our regular tutorials, and then I'm going to probably add a couple more just so that you guys can really dive in deeper on your own study, your own practice. We can review what we learned last year and maybe learn some new things on top of that. So keep an eye out. I'll kind of give the official announcement on that restructuring here in a bit and talk to you guys about it at Watercolor Club next week for Thursday and the following week for Wednesday. We had that weird staggered fourth Wednesday and Thursday this month, but anywho, let's just dive right in. Okay, so I have some fun summer stuff, summer fruit that we're gonna start with. Okay, all right. So let's just do it. I think we'll start with cherries. Cherries are super fun. They're very in this summer, quite the trend. So I think something that sets you apart, like when you're doing watercolor, is instead of just going straight with like your cherry color and dropping it in, what makes it different is adding like some dimension to it, right? So like really pulling on the different colors of our cherries, of like the different depths of color that we get through there. So like if we have Rainier cherries, we have like kind of those yellows and like super light colors, and then like the bright oranges and the vibrant red. We also get on the other cherries kind of like we can get some like bright reds, but we get those really deep, like almost purpley kind of red tones too. So just having like utilizing your wet and wet technique, and this is going to be a stretch and water control all around for this practice, okay? So water control is going to be something we're definitely reviewing this month. But just getting like some depth of color in there is going to help a lot with your watercolor fruit, because a lot of them are super simple shapes, super simple in theory to create, but just to kind of elevate it to that next level to make it feel like it's something more than what it might be on the surface. Give it that extra depth. We're going to be playing with color here. Okay, so for cherries, I'm going to start up with my warm. Like I said, we have a lot of yellows in our cherries, so I'm going to wake up my yellow. And you could add like white gouache if you want to make it like a creamier yellow. That is okay. Like I have this white gouache here. Maybe we'll try it. Okay. So I just want like a nice kind of base of yellow. I'm going to wake up my other colors just so I don't have to later, which you can just pull over your brush. I have my pipettes, you know, so you can do that as well. You can get these like on Amazon or on Quality Art, or I don't know, Amazon might be your best bet. But just making up kind of my warmer colors here. Whoa, where am I putting this? Okay, so to start thinking about the shape of a cherry, cherries are round, right? But we don't want it to be perfectly circular because that's gonna feel funky too. They have a little more nuance than just like a round ball. So we've got kind of like our little indentation, like our little heart at the top where our stem's gonna pull out from. And at the bottom, they are kind of round, but they can be a little like flatter at the bottom too, because they can get kind of a little indentation there as well. So not all of our shapes have to be the same. It's best if they're not. It gives it a little extra dimension, right? So I'm just gonna pull, I want this to be like a pretty wet paint. Okay, so a good amount of water in there. And we're just going to lay down kind of that 45-degree angle. We're just going to, I kind of do one half of the cherry at a time. So kind of like a little C curve there, and then kind of like fatten it up, get it a little juicier. And on the other side of our cherry, we've got the same kind of thing, another little C curve. Okay, and they can meet up down there at the bottom. And then just kind of like pulling them together. You can leave a little highlight there if you want to, which I think personally is kind of fun. But again, you don't have to. So we're just gonna go over that, make sure everything's wet. But I'm gonna grab my brush, and anywhere that's pooling, I'm gonna pull that up because I don't want my pigment to spread too hastily. Okay, so then I'm gonna grab my whatever color I'm gonna add to my cherries. I really love this like bright, vibrant Scarlet Lakey color. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, but I don't want too much on my brush, right? Because I don't want to overpower it. And I'm gonna kind of just outline that cherry, pulling in our red colors, just dropping that pigment wherever you think. So you can just let it bleed, or you can give it a little assist, like right here. I might just kind of soften that a little bit. This kind of dried, so I'm gonna help it out. The one thing that I don't like about using gouache as much for bleeds and stuff like this is just it's a much different consistency, so it doesn't spread as easily as just like a watercolor would. Okay, but I can do a little lifting. I'm gonna take a dry brush and kind of lift some of that pigment up on kind of like the most forward part of the cherry, like where I think the biggest bump would be facing me, if that makes sense, you know? So like the more round part. I'm gonna kind of lift that pigment, give it a little bit of a highlight moment, okay? So we have like just a little extra dimension in our cherries, and it creates a little more texture than just like going in straight with red would. Okay. I'm gonna grab my green gold. This is one of my favorite colors from Memory Blue. You could do just yellow and sap green as well, but I love this green gold. I think it's so pretty. I'll probably wake up my sap green too because I like to mix the two. And then just going straight into that center here, more perpendicular hold. We can pull out the stem of our cherry. And we can give it a little leaf. So again, revisiting our leaves, point, press, release. We can double up on that, make it a little longer. Give it one leaf or two. And there we go. There's a cute little cherry. So obviously, this can be replicated in many ways. We can do two, like the double cherry, one leaf, two leaf, you know, play with it. So let's try this again. Let's do like I want to pull out my other palette because I want to do like a deeper red color. And what kind of red do I want though? This is kind of that pink Rosa quinacridone. But I want maybe like a dragon's blood kind of color. Oof. There's like a deeper red. This is a Rosso Permanente Tyro. I'll pull that to the side, but I still want that like dragon's blood, kind of deep, bloody kind of red. Hold please. Okay, I found it. So it's this Sangue di Drago, dragon's blood. Okay. So I'm gonna put a bit of that on my palette. And a little bit of this guy. I think it might be this red that's already here. I think that is. So we have like kind of our lighter red and our darker red. And we're gonna pull from those. So whenever I'm doing these and I'm doing bleeds like that, I want to start with my lighter color. So I'm gonna grab some of that lighter red. Okay, that's gonna be more my base. I'm gonna dilute it a bit. Okay. So same kind of deal. We're gonna do our C curve, creating the shape of the first half of our cherry. You can make this one a little thicker. And then our second little C curve, creating that second half. Okay. I'm gonna dry off my brush, pick up whatever pooling areas here, and go into that dragon's blood. Dragon's blood is a darker color, but it is, I feel like more of a transparent pigment, so we'll see how this goes. Oh yeah. It's just what I was hoping for. So I'm gonna kind of just, again, outline it. I like to keep the lighter colors where the highlights would be and kind of drop this where I think the shadows would go. Okay. So just dropping in, again, really working with our water control, especially on kind of a smaller surface like this. Okay. And just play with it. There's no right or wrong answer as to where your shadows and highlights should go. You just kind of have to like the look of it, right? So as long as you like it, that's really all that matters. Let's do another one. We'll do like our little double cherry. So our little C curve. You don't have to have like a full line in the middle of all of those. It's just kind of an idea, right? But I like to kind of switch up the shape just like ever so slightly from one to the next, just to, again, make it feel more diverse and intentional and kind of organic. I consider that on one, the light source is going to be the same. It's going to be coming from the same area, so kind of just drop your colors in accordingly that way. But I really like this like lighter red and dragon's blood combo. I think it's nice, quite nice. Okay, I'm gonna drop my stem. I like to do it while it's wet still because I like the bleed that you get from it, but up to you. So I'm just kind of mixing a little bit of the sap green with our green gold. I'm gonna go in, touch that top, and then light pressure, pull out our little stem. Create a little triangle up at the base to connect that. Same thing on this one. And pull it up to connect. Give ourselves a little leaf. Oh wow, my shirt is pulling paint everywhere. That's cute. Okay. So point, press, hold, tip, belly, tip. Just pulling that in. You can always go in with a darker green too. So like that's mostly green gold. I could go in with like a sap green. Maybe I'll add a touch of this black to my sap green. You can drop in some little bleeds there too. Give it extra dimension. You know? Something a little like that. And there we go. I think that's super fun. Wow, I'm making such a mess. I need to roll my sleeves up. But so cute. So just play with your colors. You can play with your bleeds, and then you get all these different fun cherries that are like much cuter than just doing round blobs of red, right? Okay, so moving on with like a similar vibe, but slightly different. We're gonna do peaches. So peaches are the same kind of thing. They're even like a very similar shape to our cherries, just on a bigger scale, okay? And peaches, again, the way that we make them feel multi-dimensional and beautiful to look at with watercolor is to get our funky colors and our bleeds in there, okay? So again, I'm gonna start with my yellow because peaches kind of have like a yellow base and they kind of get some oranges and some like reds and pinks in there. So you can, again, choose kind of what colors you want to go for, and you can mix it up. You can do some on the more orange side, some on the more pink side, some yellow, whatever. But I'm switching, I'm using a bigger brush, so I'm using my size 10 round brush. And then it's going to be the same thing. So basically the same technique we used for the cherries. Holding my brush at that 45-degree angle so I can utilize the belly of it, and then doing that C curve. Can thicken it up. I'm going to go over it a couple times to make sure it stays wet since we're utilizing that wet and wet. I'm going to kind of like create two halves here though. So like they're kind of like two little ovals that meet. And that's kind of a peachy-ish shape. Okay, I'm going to start here, do the same thing. Get that second C curve. Follow that line. And just kind of pull this, like round this out on the side over here. Okay, again, going over it because we want to make sure that we have those wet and wet bleeds. Just making sure everything stays nice and wet. Okay, I'm gonna go into my next colors that I want, so maybe I'll grab some orange. I'll drop in a little orange shade. I want this to kind of fade out a little bit bigger because then I'm gonna even add more, add like that red, pinkish kind of color. And then I'm going to go into my red. I might take a little pink, mix it with it. And we'll drop in some deeper tones. That's kind of a little dark. Darker than what I was thinking. Kind of just go like the center is going to be our lightest colors because that's where we get more of our highlights, and then just drop in our darker colors kind of on the outlines. Okay, really meditating to just kind of watch it. Okay. Drop in more or less. We don't want to like overdo it because then it starts looking a little funky, and you kind of just want the watercolors to do a lot of the thinking for you as to where they're going to end up. Okay. Let's grab a little bit of this brown for our little stem. I'm going to take a touch of black and add it to our brown. And just kind of add in our little peach stem. And let's add a leaf. So I'm going to do the same green gold, sap green. Peach leaves are very similar, just maybe a little bigger. So tip, belly tip, and pull that to the side. You can touch it so you get a bleed. You can do more leaves, less leaves. You could add a leaf down here, kind of draping over, and then maybe one here. Okay, so there is a peach. And again, you can do the same thing with the cherries. Play with the colors. We could go more pink. We could give it like this Naples yellow reddish color for our base. We can use some of that instead. Again, with the gouache colors, the bleeds just are a little bit different. They don't spread as fast. They dry quicker. So it's just a little different of a process, but it's good to practice and work with it too. I kind of want to paint like an open face peach, like a peach that's been cut in half with the pit in the center. I think that would be pretty fun. So let's try it. So especially the inside flesh is going to be, depends on your peach, right? If you get a white peach or a yellow peach or whatever kind of peach you get, I'm going to go with a more white peach, but I am going to add a little white gouache to it too, because I want it to be a little peachier, and like that just makes it, to me, that like makes it feel creamier, which for some reason feels peachy. But we're going to do the same thing shape wise. This one, the angle is kind of different, and I want this one to kind of just be facing us. So I'm going to kind of do just the half. I'm going to kind of carve out this like circle in the center a little bit. We can obviously put the peach pit over our flesh as well. So it does not have to be like perfectly carved out or anything, but I'm just kind of like thinking about how it's going to go in there. And if you wanted to sketch it, you could. I don't want to because these colors are so light. That was excellent timing for my camera to die. But I'm just going to go over this again because we need it to be wet. Okay. I love this camera, but the battery life sucks. So I have to have like 3 on deck, 3 batteries. Okay. And I'd rather my peach flesh kind of like go too far in than not far enough in, if that makes sense. But I'm going to make sure that everything stays nice and wet. So just going over that top, adding a little more paint, maybe a little more water, just to be able to utilize our wet and wet technique here. Okay, so it's like 2 slices of peaches next to each other, kind of. And then same thing. We don't want it to go as far inwards, but we're gonna go around and add kind of like our skin color around the outside. Our peach skin color, not our skin color. That would be funny. Weird. Make it kind of fade into it a little bit, so I'm gonna kind of go over that and blend. Okay, and I'm gonna take some of this red get a little bleed bleed blend there on the outsides. And then on the center of our core too, we kind of get a little bit of color here. So it's kind of drying, right? Because it's, like I said, gouache and it dries fast. But I'm gonna take a wet brush just with water, damp, I don't want to be too wet, blend that out. And maybe in the center get a little red. Okay. And I want this to dry, and we'll go in and add our little peach pit, but I don't want it to bleed everywhere. Maybe though I'll do like a tiny little there. So I've got some brown. I might add a touch of this white gouache, I don't know, just to make it creamier. And just do like a base layer and touch like some of those spots. So we get like maybe a little bit of a bleed, but I just don't want too much. But I do want to lean into the watercolor vibe, so I want a little bit of a bleed. Okay, so just adding kind of like our base layer of our peach pit, and then we'll go back in and add our textures in. For this too, while some of this is wet, I might like thicken up some of the skin over on one side or the other, just to kind of make it feel like three-dimensional, you know? It feels a little flat. I want one side to kind of show a little bit more than the other. Okay. All right. So let that dry and revisit this in a second. Okay, while this dries, let's talk about watermelon. So watermelon's like, I feel like the quintessential summer fruit. Like everyone loves watermelon, it's delicious. And it's so cute. It's always like on trend too. So when we're making watermelon, there's kind of like that really beautiful pink color. I like to make it a little extra creamier too. I'm gonna use some of this Rosso quinacridone, which is just quinacridone red, but it's kind of pink. So I really enjoy it. And then I have some of this Naples yellow reddish dried beside it. So I'm gonna kind of mix the two of those a little bit. Okay, this pink would work just fine. I just would do a little more water to like dilute it a bit, or you could add a little bit of white gouache to whatever pink you have, and that would be beautiful too for our like pink fruit color. For the rind, I'm going to be using my green gold and my sap green, and I'll probably just mix a darker green, like the green with black, to give us some extras with our little textures that we'll add. Okay, so we're going to start with we'll just do like the full watermelon first. Our watermelon. So I'm gonna do some of this green gold, but I want it to be nice and more. I'm just mixing it with whatever green's already in here, so it's gonna be not purely green gold, but a lighter green. Okay, so just grabbing this. I just want it to be a bit more water forward, because again, we're gonna do this. We're gonna warm up our wet and wet again. Since we've been utilizing it, we're going to capitalize on that over here for our watermelon. So getting a nice watery base of our green color. Okay, I think that looks quite nice. Maybe a little extra touch of green gold. Okay, and then we're gonna drop our shape in. So watermelons can be kind of oval, they can be circles. We just want a round shape. So whatever kind of round shape you want. I'm using my larger brush. I could probably use size 12 for this too, but we're just gonna go with what we have in my hand already. Okay. So I'm just dropping in my full watermelon. Okay. Nice light shade. Making sure to go over the areas that have dried so that we can do our wet and wet. And I'm spreading, see where it's all pooling up here. I'm just gonna kind of spread that out, redistribute where it's kind of dry and where I need my shape to go. I think this side is kind of dried too. I'm gonna also pull this line out. Cool, I think they're getting to that shape. So obviously you can pre-sketch this too, but I'm just kind of winging it. Okay, so just going over, making sure everything is coated. And then we get these lines on our watermelon. So I'm gonna grab some of our, straight from our pigment. I'm gonna go into my sap green. I'm gonna add a little bit of this black to it. And we're just gonna add some lines. I'm gonna start from one end and I'm gonna kind of just squiggle out our pigment lines here. And go from one end to the next and kind of just follow that same shape. Working relatively fast so that we can do this before our watermelon dries. On the end, obviously I don't want to squiggle too much because I want it to be squiggled on the inside, but I want to keep that shape on the outside. Okay. The outside seems to be drying fairly fast, so I'm going to get those lines moving first and then go back to the centers. Add our squiggly lines in. They don't have to be perfect. There is no such thing, remember? Just adding in kind of that little texture. Okay, so while those lines are still wet, we can go in with an even darker green. Take a little more black to that sap. And we can go kind of accentuate those even further since they're kind of dissipating. You don't have to, but it's kind of fun. Gives it a little, even more dimension. Right, so more of that sap and black combo. And just add that to the centers of our lines here. Okay, and it gives that a little bit more oomph, you know. But this one definitely is a test in water control because you must do it while it's still wet, but you also don't want it pooling. So it's just making sure we have that nice sheen, right? Just our little sheen of water on our paper when we go in to add it, but enough to keep it wet so that we have enough time to do our full melon before it dries. So a little bit of balance, but again, nothing you can't handle, nothing we haven't talked about already, just practice. Practice makes progress. That's how I get these beautiful wet and wet leaves. Okay. So beautiful watermelon. We're gonna come back to our watermelon because right now I'm just gonna go back to my peach pit really fast. So I'm gonna grab some of this brown, maybe add a touch of our black in there, darken her up a bit. I've got this kind of brown black combo here. So I'm just gonna grab that. You can use a smaller brush if you want, but we're just gonna go in, perpendicular hold, not too loaded of a brush, tap off any excess if you need to, but we're just gonna kind of add some like squiggly lines that you would see like on a peach pit, you know? So you get kind of like those like weird, you kind of just let your hand spaz a bit. So kind of just these weird little squabbles here. And just maintaining that within the shape of the peach pit, so just kind of like closing off the outside to make it the shape of our pit. Okay, and I might take a little darker pigment, put it around the sides here, and then that just kind of gives us more of a three-dimensional feel because it gets lighter at the top towards you and where that highlight is as well. And there we go. There's a little open face peach. You could always go in and add a little leaf or something if you wanted to as well there. I'm not going to just because I don't have that much room here. But yeah, we could do something fun with this watermelon too. So I could just take like my sap green, maybe touch of that black, right? I could add, watermelon leaves are funky, but we could add like some little, they're little squiggly, swirly things. What are these called? Tendrils? Little vining watermelons. I don't know, I'm kind of just filling in some space. I feel like watermelon leaves are funky though. Like, they're not just like your normal leaf. And they're kind of smaller. So you like kind of start in the middle there, and then they kind of like have these little things off the side, like another little leaf. Then they kind of connect, and then there's like this little section between, so then you'd connect another little thing like that, and then those would have things off of it. But then it kind of, again, you get a little gap, you get another little section of leaves. I'm just kind of funky. I don't know. I don't like what that did to that space there, but we'll do one more over here. Maybe we'll make this one smaller. Just pull that in. I don't know. Watermelon leaves are weird, so you can figure that out. I don't think that many people are going to be painting the watermelon leaves, so to each their own. But anyways, let's talk about watermelon slices. That's much more fun. Okay, so watermelon slices. I'm gonna start on the inside. So we're gonna get our pink color. So I'm gonna wake up my Naples yellow reddish here. This one doesn't always rehydrate super well. I mean, it's not like as pigmented as it is when it's dry, but for like mixing like this, it's not bad. I'm gonna grab some of this quinacridone red. Just kind of pull it in there and you get this really pretty kind of creamy watermelon color. Oh, you probably can't even see that, huh? So I'm just pulling some of this quinacridone red into my Naples yellow reddish here. You get a really pretty watermelon. You could just mix this with white, whatever you need to do. But we're gonna find a little triangle. I switched to my small brush again. I don't know, you could use whatever one, but this is a size 6. And I'm just creating a slice. I want it to be kind of rounded just because I like that style more. I think it's cuter. I like to pull some water too, so you get just different variations of this color, so it's not all the same, right? Because we could go in with just more of a dark quinacridone red too. Here and there, like maybe around the outside. If we want to. And again, since I'm using gouache, I kind of have to go over it quite a bit to keep it wet. However, we're not going to be doing like crazy bleeds on this one. I don't even remember which way I want this to go. I feel like it got so wide. Okay, and I'm kind of lightening it up towards this end here. So just water. And still kind of keeping it rounded out. Okay, and there's kind of some like white here. So I kind of just take this and soften it out. Just with water to kind of get the transition to our lighter rind. But I'm gonna take our green, and I want a little bit of that bleed there. Oops, this green. So I'm gonna kind of touch it still because I want that blend of colors. I'm just following that shape. So on the sides here, I'm gonna pull this up further. Get a little more thickness to that rind. And then we can add some of our little squiggles too. So if I take some of this black and our sap green, could go this way or this way. I'm gonna go this way. Add our little squiggly lines in there. Just to mimic what we have on our outside of our rind here. Okay. Or you could go the other way. Okay, then we get kind of like a light transition between these two without like leaving just this big white gap of like where that kind of like watermelon pith area is, I guess, is maybe what you call it. While this dries, let's do like another variation of this. Maybe like a half melon. So just taking that same color, a line. And then like a little upside down C curve or a little U shape in there. Trying to get some variations of color as we go. I don't want too much because I don't want like weird bleeds and stuff like these other ones, because watermelons just don't really have that vibe in the center as much. You definitely could, but I'm kind of just trying to get more watered down versions and less watered down versions of the same color. And then maybe we'll go in with like a little darker quinacridone and we can dang dogs, they bark at everything. Okay, and then same thing here. I'm gonna try to just kind of blur this line a little bit. I might need to go yell at Stella. She's the barker for sure. Stella, 1 second. Okay, so we still want to do this while it's wet because I want that bleed moment. Ugh. But I'm gonna touch it here and there, leave some space here and there. I'm using my smaller brush for this just to keep a smaller kind of rind. I'll pull this out here further. Kind of shape it up more the way I want it to be. This one I'm just going to kind of do my sap green on the outside. So I started with my green gold on the inside, and then I'm kind of just going over with my sap green instead of doing all the lines. because then it's more like the lines like we cut a wedge out of here maybe. Cute. Cute, cute. Okay, this one is dry, so we'll go add some seeds in there. So I'm gonna pull just straight from my black with my smaller brush. And starting from the center, I'm just gonna kind of tap it in to make like the shape of a seed, like a little boop. Just barely the tip, okay? And kind of just spacing them out here and there. Don't want to go overboard and have too many seeds, because it'll look kind of funky. I'm tapping this watermelon rind everywhere. Just kind of dotting in some seeds here and there. Looks so cute. I'm gonna fix this rind while it's still wet. Grab some of that dark. Ooh, got a lot of water on my brush. That's not what I wanted. Fix that edge a little bit. Okay. And then this is not dry, but we're gonna do the same thing here. But I'm gonna kind of angle my seeds out this way. You can do them like however you want to, but I just think it looks better if you kind of like, I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Okay, our watermelon's all dry now, so we're gonna add our little seeds into it. So again, I'm just gonna start kind of pointing towards the center and kind of just fanning them out from there. Just kind of giving them a direction a little bit. They're not all gonna be the same. But just a few seeds in. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want it to become too spotted. But there we go. There's our first batch of fruits that took up our whole sheet of paper. So we're gonna move on to some berries for our next sheet. But look how stinking cute. Get my glue off my paper. But I love them. So we've got some cherries, our peaches, watermelon, and yeah, so much fun. Okay, you can also like go back in and add lines to your peach leaves or something if you want to, right? That's always an option. That's something we do pretty often. Could do the same for our cherry leaves. Just throwing it out there, but play with it, have fun. And yeah, those are so cute. So let's move on. We're going to revisit strawberries. So we did strawberries back in February, just like a cute little strawberry exercise. That was kind of more of just like a flow video than like actually learning about strawberries. But let's talk strawberries. Okay, so again, same thing like with our smaller fruits, like our cherries and any of our fruits. The thing that'll make it different and unique and fun to look at is having a variety of colors going on, so that it's not just like a red triangle. Okay, so we want it to be a little more dimensional. So we've got like some reds, pinks. You can even do some like little yellows, or just like more watered down versions of those colors. Okay. So to start with our strawberries, let's see, I'm going to use kind of what we did for our watermelon base, but I don't want it to be too creamy, so I'm going to kind of just pull from here. We had that quinacridone red, but I'm just kind of watering it down. And then there's a touch of whatever's on this palette, whatever, I don't care. Okay, and our strawberry shape is going to be triangular-ish, but we get kind of all different shapes of strawberries as well. So kind of just laying in a vague kind of triangle shape. And it's kind of rounded out, right? Because we don't want it to be like a pointy triangle, but gonna move the water around so that it stays wet and so we don't have any pooling. Go back over those dry areas. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab some of this quinacridone red. I'm gonna mix it with our Rosso, the one we used for our cherries. I just want like a deeper kind of red, but I kind of want a tone of pink in there a little bit. So kind of like a red pink color. And I'm gonna go around. Okay, they're a little bit lighter up at the top, I feel like, a lot of the times. So we're gonna leave more of that up at the top. Okay, let's try another one. Maybe we'll do like a little bit of yellow on the base of this one. Oh, I'm stamping. Look at my arm. Oh my gosh. And I just stamped it everywhere. What am I doing? Okay. So same kind of thing. Similar shape. Maybe I'll round this one out a little bit more. And you could also just do water so you get kind of like different. I just want to tone my water a little bit. I'm gonna make this one maybe a little fatter, a little plumper and rounder. Okay. And then maybe I'll do like a brighter red with this. So just kind of taking a little bit of the Scarlet Lake and adding it to that color that we already had. I don't want it to be too diluted, but I don't want it to be super thick. Okay, so again, just kind of dropping in that color. And I kind of am leaving some of that highlight up at the top here. I don't really know. I don't love how that highlight looks, but I'm gonna lift a little bit. So I'm just gonna move it and kind of lift. Okay. I'm gonna add a little leaf to these, some leaves. So again, I'm going into my green gold because I just love this color. And I'm just gonna do kind of just like these little guys. It's just kind of small, again, using my size 6 brush. Just kind of like little tufts of leaves. You can pull in a stem even. And put some like greens that maybe look like they're starting to poke out the other side in there. I want to add it to this one while it's still wet so that it kind of can bleed. Tuck one behind, I don't know. But it just gives it a little extra dimension. So something we can do too is we can do like a kind of like an open face strawberry. So if we take that and cut it in half, I'm gonna do a very similar thing to what we did originally with our yellowy color. I want a really nice watered down yellow. And we're gonna cut our strawberry in half. But again, still kind of like a rounded triangle shape that we're laying down initially. Make sure it's all real nice and wet. I'm gonna lift a little bit from the center because I want it to be kind of more white in the center. And then I'm gonna grab some of this color. And we're going to just go around the outsides. Okay, because we just see kind of like that fleshy color along the outside of the fruit here. And then the inside maintains that like kind of white center. I'm gonna kind of pull this color down. Down and around. Okay, leaving that center kind of open there. Maybe I'll try to get like a darker color, some more of this like red. Maybe I'll add a touch of this darker dragon's fruit, just to dragon's blood. Just going around the outsides, getting a even darker kind of border. Just so we get a couple changes of color there. Okay. And I can give these a couple leaves too. Okay. For our little straws that aren't cut in half, we can do a couple different options for our dots. So we can take kind of some white or some yellow gouache, or white and yellow, yellow gouache with yellow, white gouache with yellow paint, watercolor. And we can do some of those little dots. So just kind of, again, dotting. I like to do kind of a variety of size. And I'm kind of just making these like cute and stylized. We're not doing like super realistic straws or anything. So there's one option. We can do like kind of the yellow seeds that they have, or we can do kind of some black in there. So let's see what they look like. So I think I like the yellow best personally, just because I like how light it is and it kind of goes with like the vibe more so. But we could do either of those and they're kind of cute. Okay, so there's our kind of different strawberries. And these are kind of more stylized. They're cutesy, like little whimsical berries. I feel like if we got too nitty-gritty with the strawberries, we would have to do like a whole separate video on like more realistic strawberries, because they're a little bit more in depth with the seeds and stuff, and we'd probably be breaking out some masking fluid and all of that. So if you want that, let me know. But since we're doing so many fruits, we're not doing that today. But yeah, there's a couple strawberries, and then our last little berry that we're gonna do is we're just gonna go into some blueberries. So blueberries, it's gonna be the same thing as everything else that I've talked about. Shape is very super simple, so we don't want to make it boring. So in order to make it cuter, we're going to spice it up with colors. Okay, so let's see, what blueberry colors do we want? We obviously need a blue, which, you know, I love Prussian blue, and how many colors I feel like are in a good Prussian. So I'll probably wake up my Prussian, but I want like a little purpley action going too. So let's wake up our quinacridone purple, quinacridone violet, and we're gonna use these two. Okay. So for our bloobs, they're really small, right? So they're just little circles, but they have like kind of those little like fringy tops. And I think that there's like a couple ways that we can style these to be super cute. So let's just try. So we're gonna do a little circle, and I'm just gonna lay down some color. I rinsed my brush because I want it to be nice and light now, and I want to kind of dilute that. I'm gonna pull out a little circle, but kind of keeping that light. Okay. And then maybe I'll do like a little, pull this for like a little tuft. So just kind of give them like their little top there. don't really know how I feel about that. I did not practice these blueberries. I just had a vision. And so who knows if we're gonna make it come to life, but okay. Let's just like touch this with a Prussian, and we're gonna leave a little highlight on that one. And this one we're gonna do darker. And maybe we'll see there's a little tufty guy still. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go with just water here. And touch both of those. So you get like a little cross-contamination between the two. I'm gonna take this and touch a little purple there. Just so we get a little bleed. That Prussian blue is super strong, so it kind of pushes it away. Okay, and we're doing this stylized. I'm gonna try something. So I'm gonna try like maybe like a top view. And we're gonna give it like kind of our little weird circle that you would see around the blueberry for the like little tuft. And then we're going to just make our little circle around that, but we're gonna touch the rest of our blueberries to get kind of that bleed moment going. I'm gonna do another one with just water here. Okay, grab a Prussian. Give that our little squiggly weird things up at the top for our, I'm gonna pick up some of this just so it doesn't bleed too much. But I feel like that's kind of fun. We'll do a little Prussian guy over here too for our, like this kind of thing. The top view of our blueberry. We'll just do a purple one here. Maybe we'll put our little tufty guy, like something like that. Let's do a water one. I don't know, this one's kind of more of like a flow state exercise too. But it's cute and it's fun and I like it. I'm gonna do our front-facing bloob. I'll do a little water one here. Get a little purple. Maybe we'll do it from like kind of a side angle here. Okay, so we're using some negative space to create our whole vibe here, to create like the shape and such of our blueberry. This is kind of just fun and relaxing and meditative. So nothing to take too seriously. But we've got a little cluster of blueberries, which is just kind of fun. And you can do that for like as long as you want to. I'm just looking at my time now and feeling like I'm running out for at least this first tutorial. We've covered a lot of ground though. And we have some really fun fruits. So I hope that helps. I hope you guys like take away the lessons of just like layering and like wet and utilizing that magic of watercolor to kind of harness in on our like fruits. So they can be super simple shapes, but what makes it fun and nice to look at with watercolor is getting those wet bleeds and having multiple colors in one fruit going on, so that it kind of makes it just a little more pleasing to the eye. Okay friends, I hope you had so much fun with our little fruit practice today. These are some really fun summer produce items, and yeah, I just hope you enjoyed this month's first lesson. Again, we'll be meeting in person still this month for my in-person people. And then I'm kind of restructuring Watercolor Club and going to be offering some more virtual options. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be doing the full announcement for our in-person people, and then shortly after for all of our online people. So I hope you had so much fun, and I'd love to see your practice. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what vegetables you want to try to do for like summer produce vegetables for our next one. And happy painting.